And that's the first moment of freedom. That's the first freedom, is that no longer being driven by the compulsion to drink, no longer having the inability to remember what happens when I drink, and then beginning to say, I want to be sober a day at a time. That became a fervent desire, as well as terrible fear of returning. When you catch the fire and you start to actually engage in the activity of sobriety, filled with an energy, you're filled with a power, you're filled with goodness. You don't even know what's happening, but you start to be filled with this energy that just starts to kind of strengthen you and give you an energy to move forward. Freedom to not drink, that's the whole game first, but then it's freedom. Am I ever going to be free from the past? That's the next thing. Am I ever going to not have the shadow?
Welcome to the Daily Reflection Podcast with your hosts Michael L. and Lee M. This is a show where we provide experience, strength, and hope through interviews with members of the recovery community. The show is not affiliated with any 12-step or recovery program, although you may hear them mentioned throughout the course of an interview.
Today it's January 30th, and we're here with Mitchel G. from New York City. Very excited to hear him share today.
Great. Well, Mitchel, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you and Lee, Michael.
So as we normally do, we start the podcast off with the guest reading the daily reflection for the day. And today is January 30th. Would you help us out by reading the daily reflection?
My pleasure. Okay. January 30th. The title is Freedom From, Freedom To. Quote from AA's big book, We're Going to Know a New Freedom. Freedom for me is both freedom from and freedom to. The first freedom I enjoy is freedom from the slavery of alcohol. What a relief. Then I begin to experience freedom from fear of people, of economic insecurity, of commitment, of failure, of rejection. Then I begin to enjoy freedom too. Freedom to choose sobriety for today. Freedom to be myself. Freedom to express my opinion. To experience peace of mind, to love and be loved, and freedom to grow spiritually. But how can I achieve these freedoms? The big book clearly says that before I am halfway through making amends, I will begin to know a new freedom. Not the old freedom of doing what I pleased without regard to others, but the new freedom which allows fulfillment of the promises in my life. What a joy to be free.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Really
is
is.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
So you had some choices when we started booking these episodes. You actually chose this particular daily reflection. Can I ask why?
Well, fundamentally, to be free from the compulsion to drink and self-destructing, and free to become a person who can be part of the world, make a contribution, learn to love, be loved. That freedom, which I didn't have when I was a slave to alcohol, is a very euphoric experience for me. And the word freedom has great power and energy for me. It's what I experienced as a result of being a sober man. Most of the time, not all the time.
How long have you been sober?
I'm sober 35 years. I got sober in March 6th, 1985 in New York City. And by the grace of God and all the kindnesses and love and energies of people far and wide, I haven't had to pick up a drink. Thank you, God.
What was it like before you got sober?
I was a teenage alcoholic and drug addict. So, I needed to start drinking at a young age to basically find a way to deal with the anger, the pain of growing up in an alcoholic family. And so being a teenage alcoholic and drug addict saved my life and then put me on a course that took me to, all kind of addiction, all kind of criminality, all kind of scary legal shit, all kind of just very self-destructive, high-risk behaviors that my disease fueled. And I just kept drinking, and I love to drink and love to get loaded. And until it, as we know, it turns on us, and so it turned on me. And at the end of my drinking, I had busted up a marriage. My parents were scared shitless. I was indicted by a federal grand jury that was after me. I mean, I had a mess of consequences when I came into AA. Mentally, spiritually, physically. I looked older than I am today. I was so broken. So, I found my way into AA through Al-Anon. My cousin knew that I wasn't ready. She was in recovery. So she sent me to Al-Anon because my mom is multiply addicted. And, I was trying to pick up girls in Al-Anon for a year. That was kind of my jam. I was one man, and I really enjoyed being a lot of attention. And to be frank with you, I never even thought about who was an alcoholic. Finally, the truth is, this is a very comedic story. As a lost soul, I found my way into Arts Anonymous, which is a very interesting fellowship, which starts with I'm powerless over my creativity and my life has become unmanageable. So as a lost soul, I find my way into the Arts Anonymous meeting. I don't know how I ended up there. So I went to AA, and I didn't like AA because I wasn't in a detox. I didn't beat the shit out of my wife. I drove drunk endlessly, but I never was put in jail. Even I could walk the line. I had this kind of great skill for walking the line drunk and touching my nose. And the second time I went to AA, I went to the 79th Street workshop at 10 o'clock in Manhattan. And it was on a high holy day in a faith tradition I used to practice. And I went there and I sat there. And at 10 o'clock night, when people go to meetings, I mean, it's on fire. Nobody's at a meeting at 10 o'clock because they're relaxed. Okay, they're like there because it's like, everybody's on edge. They're really on edge at 10 o'clock, just kind of looking. And I went, and, I was a lost soul. And the most amazing thing happened is that I heard this little lady speak, who was a little Irish lady. And she was so cute. She was wearing a Harris tweed jacket. I can see it today. And she shared about being a periodic sherry drinker. And I was a madman, not a periodic sherry drinker. But she described, all the feelings of despair and loneliness and fear she couldn't stop drinking, and just the kind of deterioration that she experienced emotionally, ethically, relationally, spiritually. And somehow at that moment, I don't know, that was the grace, man. Somehow we have those moments of identification, which are moments of heart healing. They're not mind healing. And it's almost like that moment where I felt her pain. I felt my pain. And I felt like I was a burn victim who was coming to life and feeling the pain of all these years of drinking, drugging, overdosing, stealing, lying, robbing people's security. Just a wonderful, wonderful human being I was. And then I threw myself on the mercy of AA. I don't know. I have no idea. And I caught the fire. I don't know how I caught the fire. I just have no idea. The AA I got sober in was, tough bastards. It was like, you're looking for sympathy. It's between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. Those are the kind of guys who I got sober with. They say, Mike, I got a life to live. Can you get to the point? Okay. And if you're talking to me, say, what the hell are you talking about? You called me. Can you shut up for a second? I mean, what do you think? This is the Johnny Carson show? You're going to give a monologue every time you call? I mean, these guys just, and I take the phone and I would smash it against and these were phone booths. I'd smash it like a child in frustration. Just like, I couldn't believe a human being would talk to me that way. But, these were guys who said, if you want what we have and you're willing to any lengths to get it, then we're willing to discuss it with you. If you're not, well, find somebody else to talk to. I mean, so it was a very tough crowd. They're loving guys and women, but it was and I needed every moment of that for the first 5 years of sobriety. I was not so, but I threw myself on the mercy of AA, man. I don't know. That's, as we know, it's not a fancy deal, right? You come to you don't pick up the first drink, right? You go to a meeting. You find a sponsor, you get a home group. If you're really a genius, you let somebody take you through the steps, The next thing you know, you do some service. The next thing you know, you have a recipe for a life that can start to thrive, flower without the need to destroy yourself with alcohol. And that's the first moment of freedom. That's the first freedom. The first freedom is that no longer being driven by the compulsion to drink, no longer having the inability to remember what happens when I drink, and then beginning to say, I want to be sober a day at a time. I just do. And that became a fervent desire, as well as a terrible fear of returning. The desire was pulling me forward, and the fear was lighting a fire under my ass, and so I was scared all the time, but I like a little kid holding on to his uncle's or his aunt's skirt. I just was standing there. I go to meetings, I'd stand next to people. What do you want? I said, well, I don't know. I said, you want to go for coffee? I kept a lot of people sober with how sick I was. And so, but I caught the fire. I don't know what it was. I just caught the fire, which is that desire to not drink, and that energy of willingness, which when I look back, I realized that was a gift from God. I was never willing to stop drinking. I was never willing to listen. And I felt it was that. And as you guys know, because you're devoted members of AA, when you catch the fire and you start to actually engage in the activity of sobriety, you're filled with something. You're filled with an energy. You're filled with a power. You're filled with goodness. You don't even know what's happening, but you start to be filled with this energy that just starts to kind of strengthen you and give you an energy to move forward. And freedom, freedom to not drink, that's the whole game first, but then it's freedom. Am I ever going to be free from the past? That's the next thing. Am I ever going to not have the shadow of the bad behavior, the lying, the criminality, the stealing, all the crap I did with impunity in my mind? Am I ever going to be free of the emotional reaction I have to that? Walking around with that kind of guilt, that anxiety, so the freedom comes, there's interesting, freedom and willingness have a very interesting relationship in my life. So willingness gives the potential to have freedom, right? But then the freedom was just those moments of relief, like I'm powerless. I just cannot. I cannot stay sober. Please help me. Who ever think it says we have, surrender to win? Why would you think that freedom would happen when you'd say, I don't know the answer. I need to learn, and that it's not the kind of freedom that the promises talk about, but it's the freedom to have some way to pivot and to move into life with more clarity, more dignity, be able to, handle situations which used to baffle us, right? Well, telling the truth used to baffle me. You know what I mean? It was a very baffling experience. I didn't know how to be direct with people. I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted. I didn't know how to work a regular job. My alcoholism took me into the subterranean folds of life. I was not a member of the human race. I was not interested. And to me, I don't want to marry. I don't want kids. I don't want a fucking job. That's for fucking chumps. That's what I thought. I was a jazz musician and a poet and a wild man and just kind of a distorted persona. I mean, that's how I was just lost in so many ways. So anyway, you come into AA and here it is. I'm making the coffee, I'm helping people. I'm saying hello. I wanted to get an A in AA, Mike. I was like one of those guys. So slowly, the first relationship we have is with the healing of alcoholism. And then the next relationship is the relationship we have with ourselves, right? We start to find a way to be at peace with ourselves a little bit and to find a way to get honest with ourselves so we can rightly relate ourselves to ourselves and understand the difference between lying, honesty, kindness, selfishness, self-centeredness. We start to learn and see this awareness of this, which begins to be these little trickle moments of freedom. So I'm getting more comfortable in myself. And then as I'm going through the steps, as we know, who knows? You don't know that the big promise is, will I ever be free of the past? Is it possible?
You've woven this beautiful story around the reflection, and it sounds like a rough past. I'm just wondering how long after you came into the program that you started to feel like you got some of that first freedom.
Well, the first freedom was really kind of the first very dramatic freedom was when I did one of, let me say, the first freedom was this, I had this insanely angry outburst, okay, in the work. I went white hot anger. I mean, I lost it. I was screaming at somebody at the top of my lungs in an office. Okay. And I called my sponsor up and I, gave the reason why I screamed at this person. And he said to me, "You can't talk to another human being that way. You can't. You're wrong." And I had never had a moment of freedom from anxiety when I did something wrong. Freedom from the anxiety, And I went up to this person and I said to her, "Joanne, I hope you can accept my apology. I have no right to talk to you that way, and I hope you can forgive me. And if there's anything I can do to make it right, please let me know." And I went back to my cubicle and I felt this calm come over me. And I had never felt the ability to feel it go from emotional agitation to the extreme to a sense of peace. And that was the moment where I began to believe in the 10 step. And that gave me this hook to a piece of freedom that if I'm responsible for my reactions to things, then I can feel free. And freedom means to engage in life, engage in relationships. It doesn't just mean to be do an Isadora Duncan dance. It means to be able to engage in life with kind of a full heart. And so anyway, so I started to feel freedom and I started to and I got married, I'm married, 30 years, which is a miracle. And so, next thing I'm in a relationship with a woman who I love and I have the skills of a autistic, 7-year-old who's on a high dose of Adderall, you know what I mean? And so, out of my mind. And so I started to use the tools to experience freedom from self. Like, if you want love, you learn how to love more. That's freedom. You want kindness, you learn how to be kinder. You know what I mean? You want, these are those kind of everyday things. And then going through the steps, when I hit I didn't have a spiritual awakening after the 5th step, but I had multiple spiritual awakenings after the 9th step. And so this was another moment where I made amends to my ex-wife. And she said to me, "Why weren't you this kind of man when you were married to me?" And I was up, it was like, I was in Mendocino, California, which is one of those beautiful places in the world. I said thank you to her. And I got in my car and I started driving down Highway 1 and I stopped on a rock and I just felt transcendent. I just felt this sense of relief and I never again looked in the rearview mirror. And then, as we know, with many of these men's, after we change, we let God change us, we behave differently, the past is no longer shaping the moments in the future, and which is just the absolute miracle and promise of AA, that can happen. And so, and then really, I just, I'm a devoted member of AA. I'm like a made man in AA. I'm in. You know what I mean? That's the way it is. I'm a made man. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm in. I love it. My responsibility is to continue to say thank you. That's all. I got to just say thank you. So there's a freedom in having gratitude. At one point, this is another element, is that when you catch gratitude, when you stop practicing gratitude and experiencing gratitude, you're the way you're looking at the world changes. The way you look at the people you love changes. The way it's just so there's a river of this kind of sacred appreciation inside our hearts, and that gave me all kind of the freedom to be aware and to truly appreciate, which is, man, and that's a gift, being a self-centered alcoholic, to have these moments. And so, and then as we know, as we become contributing members of our lives, and being a friend to others, and stop trying to fill our pockets and be a mooch. We're all mooches coming into AA, and then all of a sudden we realize, well, maybe I really want Lee to win. I want the best for Lee. Like, I'm not kind of upset that she got something I didn't get, or somebody's at a meeting and you just see them overcome something and you're just happy for them, and you just see sick newcomers develop new lives, and you just kind of, it's a freedom to be part of something that's bigger than you, and the joy of that, freedom and joy and gratitude, they're all intermingle. They're an alchemy of just a beautiful experience in the inner life. And then I developed an inner life. I didn't know much about that at first. And I didn't know that by seeking what this power, I could find strength and energy and comfort. And I didn't know all that. I mean, I didn't know that was possible to have an internal life that opens up a whole other world to us. And then which develops our capacity to have spiritual eyes, to look at life through spiritual eyes. Like it says in the book, spiritual above material, seeking unity as opposed to seeking, like in the first tradition, too much we, not enough me. All these moments of the shift that God helps go with us, bring us into a place where there's less fear. I mean, my sponsor talks to me, you can live without fear. You know that, don't you? I mean, fear isn't necessary. Is it really necessary? I mean, no. So the freedom is to stop misperceiving what's in front of us. I mean, that's the whole point, right? We start to misperceive what's happening in front of us all the time through the lens of selfishness, self-centeredness, fear. And then we believe it, and then we react to it, and then we think it's real, and then we make stories up about it, and then we tell other people about it. And we try to get, and then those moments when you just realize that I'm always connected to this higher power. I'm not alone. And so I'm not, this is not true, all these manifestations of self. That's not really me. That's not who I am. And so, and long-term sobriety gets harder in some ways. It does. There's a whole other challenge to long-term sobriety.
Also,
it's kind of an insidious sobriety pride that can drift in. It's kind of it's the self-talk that, well, nobody, I better just kind of keep quiet and figure it out myself. Again, another level of self-reliance, and the other, and so, this freedom, that's a long topic, this one, but it's this simple reliance on this, the big freedom. Okay, now the big freedom. We get all these little freedoms, right? And they're delicious, right? And because if we get the little freedoms, then we know how to love, right? We know when we're not loving. We know when we're loving with a hook. We know when we're open-hearted. We know when we're, a mean son of a bitch, who don't tell anybody. We know when we're manipulating. We have these radar controls of awareness where we start to see that's God consciousness, to see all this stuff and see it's not me. I'm not that person, but we see it. So now, if your sobriety is worth anything, of course, this is opinionated, then you have relationships that mean something. If you don't have any relationships that mean something, then you have a real hard time, whether it's with. So as you mature in sobriety, spiritually and emotionally, then you have this experience of caring about people and having them care about you. And it's so basic, but it's so enriching. And then when you look at your children, you look at your friends, you look at them and you say, I'm a lucky motherfucker. Jesus Christ, how did I end up here? I should be in a jail cell or dead. The shit I pulled, the gangsters I hung out with, the laws I broke. I mean, I wasn't like public enemy number one, but I was a nut job, who was, if you get caught with one joint in New York, you go to jail for 99 years. So my mother used to say, God bless stupid animals and my son. That was her prayer for me. So anyway, so I'm trying to say is like, the freedom, like for me, everyday life is still an acid trip. I mean, I really have to tell you, I'm always surprised that I'm still in everyday life. I mean, so freedom to dream. I do what I wanted. I have work, which I love doing. I make good dough. I contribute to my family. I mean, the last thing I ever thought that I'd be a contributing member of society the way I am. I mean, I'm free and I've had dreams and, I'm the kind of guy who has to do what he loves. I have to do things that are in line with my value system. And so I went to DA, I went to Al-Anon, I went to ACOA, I went to OA. I mean, I'm from the some are sicker than most club, you know what I mean? Not to glorify that, but I had a lot of problems and I needed a lot of help. And so the willingness to go and do those things. I went to OA and I said, this is a chick's disease. I mean, I'm so arrogant, such an asshole. Anyway, so surrender to needing help leads to freedom if you listen and do something. And then the big part, I would just say, and this is probably the biggest of all, is that place where I'm kind of at now, where I'm realizing, that the true nature of powerlessness. I'm recovering from cancer, and some other shit that I'm dealing with this year, and chronic pain I've been in, and all kind of crap that's been going on this year, and the level of kind of surrender to love has been, I can't even tell you. My soul got cracked open that I needed to receive love from people, or else I wasn't going to make it. And that's what I mean by longer term sobriety. I'm there for you, but will you be there for me the same way? And I've never been a giant fellowship guy. I mean, I'm in the fellowship, I have friends, but I've never been kind of gung-ho with the fellowship. Connected and friends, but I met some guys, some newcomers, and this other buddy of mine who just kind of led me into this kind of warmer in the kitchen place with a bunch of guys, who just care about me. And I realize I cannot change without God. Simple as it is. God makes it happen, First, we go through the 6 and 7 step and think that we're kind of getting ourselves to change, right? We're cooperating, but we're kind of, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that, I may, and then you realize that, wow, if I actually say, I don't have to figure it out, I don't have to try to understand it, I don't have to break it down into its component parts, but I can be willing with a deep reverence to be free, to ask God to say, listen, I'm ready to be of maximum service to whoever I meet. Please change me when you want to. Please, I humbly ask you to infuse me with the energy and love and compassion which is in me, and allow it to spill through me towards people in my life. And I'm willing to go to any lengths to do that, God. And that, and man, that, when you get to that place, when I get to that, that's the place where I'm at now more. And that place of just not worrying, not trying to do anything, but trying to find the time to listen to the God within to speak. It says we pause when agitated, right? We wait, we wait for the right thought. We wait. And so I'm learning on a new level to wait for the inspiration. And I'm just, I'm a lucky guy. To live with truth, to be honest, to have reconciliations with people in the past, to find a framework for living that brings meaning and purpose, and to be able to show up for life in this kind of full-hearted way. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, that's freedom. That's freedom. What are you doing? I mean, what else do you want? You know what I mean? Like, what else do you want? You know what I mean? I don't know what else could a man or woman ask for? Is that?
You know what I wonder? As I could sit and listen for hours. By the way, I love your story and I connect to it at a deep level. But I'm wondering, did that just land, like your sense of interconnection, your awareness of the spiritual nature of this? And I've heard it said that to say there's a spiritual nature to this program, or to say there's a spiritual part to this program, is like saying there's a wet aspect to the ocean.
Yeah.
Did that just land on you?
No. Those one of the things that happened to me, Lee, was that I just became open-minded in a way. This was kind of the gift of the higher power, and I became spiritually curious. I found myself at 6 months sober in a spiritual support group with a defrocked priest and a nun who was coming on to me, and 3 other people. I mean, I just found myself, and they were very, and then I found myself, I just found myself curious. I go to see Guru Mai, this beautiful Indian yogi. And then I went to Graham. I was a Jewish Buddhist at the time. Now I don't affiliate with anything, but I found myself at a Catholic retreat center. I just found myself sitting in front of people and just being led, because when the heart asks for connection, I believe we're all led in our own way, but I cast a very broad net spiritually. And I just followed this kind of energy and this curiosity. And one of the things that happened is I had moments. I mean, I was sitting there. One of my mentors was a nun named Sister Claire Murphy at Graymore Retreat Center, and I'm sitting there with her, and I tell her, I'm sitting there meditating. I'm being quiet. I'm reading the Bible with her. I'm praying. Whoever did this, and then all of a sudden I told her, man, I said, I love God, but I really don't believe God loves me. This is my deepest shame of all. I'm not ashamed of being an alcoholic. I really am not. I mean, I was an asshole, but I mean, I'm not really that ashamed of that. I mean, I've cleaned it up with God's help, but boy, I really didn't feel lovable. I really felt that worthlessness at such a profound level, and I didn't feel God loved me. When I told her that, it was like I felt so sick to my stomach. And she laid it on me. And this is where the transmission happens. Okay. Part of what your question is, the transmission of wisdom and love happens to us in AA, if we're lucky. It's not just reading the book. Those moments when somebody lays on the wisdom that has been channeled through them, to them, through you. And she said to me, it's a long story. I won't tell you the whole one, but it's a funny story. But at the end of the day, anyway, she sends me to this lady who's her spiritual director, Sister Ann Wallace. It's very funny. So I said, why should I call her? She says, I think she can help you. So I call her up and I say, my name is Mitchell. I'm calling you because I love God, but I don't think God loves me. That's what I said to her on the phone. I said, I don't know what. She said to me, oh, okay, well, let me take a breath. Okay, thanks for telling me that. She says to me, let me tell you something. And I said, these Stations of the Cross are fucking freaking me out. I'm at Graymore. I feel like I'm going to be struck Catholic. I'm out of my mind. What am I doing? She said, well, you're just afraid to surrender to God. That's all. It's okay. You're afraid. You're afraid. You're afraid to get quiet. You're afraid to feel yourself. You're afraid to feel your fear. You're afraid to fear your love. You're just afraid. And so, and she said, okay. I said, okay. And she said to me, and this was so amazing, there are moments when we have our ignorance so illustrated to us, which is so wonderful. So she said to me, you know what the Stations of the Cross are? By the way, I know you're not Catholic, but let me kind of straighten you out, okay? They're metaphysical representations of internal states of consciousness. That's what she said to me. And I felt like talk about Dumb and Dumber. I couldn't believe my own ignorance at that point. And those are moments, Lee, of tremendous ignorance where the grace happens, where it says, wow, how little I know, all my biases. And then she said to me, do you have any children? I said, yeah, I got 3. She said, have you ever held your baby in your arms and looked at the perfection of their little teeny fingernails and their little teeny toes? Have you ever done that? I said, yeah. She said, what's your favorite part of your kid? I like the neck. I like to kiss the neck. I said, I love that. Put my head in there and kiss my kid's neck. And she said, you see the perfection of that? How could that be created? I mean, isn't that perfect? And she said, the only reason why, and this is kind of a Catholic idea, but to me it's universal, is that the only reason why you have the capacity to love is because you've been loved. Do you think you just woke up and fell out of the truck with the ability to love? You've been filled with all these qualities. And she said, it's really been nice talking to you. And she hung the phone up on me. And that's what she did. And that was a couple of years of saying, God, I really letting God work inside of this aching heart, this heart that was scared, this heart that was confused, that heart that desired to be free, desired to be the person God wants me to be. And that deep desire, it's like nothing but good comes from that. That's, as we all know, nothing but good flowers from that. It's like what you're doing here. You're doing things to kind of put the message out and to reach people in this new ways. And it's nothing good will but come out of this. That's it, because your heart's in the right place. Your ego may get involved occasionally, but who cares? It doesn't matter. The most part, your heart's in the right place. And that's the beautiful part of it all. And so truth and honesty and reconciliation and this new sense of new clear glasses, and to say, wow, man, it's such a good life. And as for us who know what it's like to live 2 lives or 3 lives in one life, it's a big deal to remember that. I remember that. And so going through this cancer experience, has been kind of illuminating. And I found a sponsor for the first time, for many years. His name is Kurt Zimmerman. I should get him to talk on here. He's a monster.
Please do.
I got a few people for. He's just And his sponsor is a Native American AA guy who's been laying on the Native American wisdom on me. And just so they're just people in AA who open the door. And in longer term sobriety, it gets a little bit more subtle. Some of the places where you hide, and the places that are, it's not just wounded, but it's attached to old ways of looking at things. And you guys know, we had to let go of the old ideas, and how many times did that happen? And that's not so easy to let go of the old ideas and to step into this place where, who am I going to be if I'm not this guy? Who am I going to be if I'm not trying to satisfy my security instincts at your expense? Who am I going to be if I stop trying so hard and just allow the energy of God, the energy of goodness to flow through me? And it's, so, I mean, you don't have to work as hard as I worked. You don't, you don't have to work hard in AA. I did because I felt so bad, but there's another way. And the beauty of sponsoring people is that they learn shit, 25 years earlier than you learned it. And that's like incredible. If you lay some shit on somebody and say, listen, man, it took me 20 years to learn this, man. And so it's like, and how good is that to be able to turn people on? And so, I don't know, this freedom from bondage is, is sweet. I'm now going to be doing, I'm doing a new fourth step. And there's another speaker I got to get for you. Her name is Mary Thayer. She's like, she's a circuit speaker, but she's a deep lady. I mean, she's just, so I'm learning, this is freedom. I'm learning new things at 35 years sober to wake my spirit up and to let go of old attachments and to realize that I'm understanding the things in the book in ways I never did before, And so it's, I don't know, it's nice to be on the river, It's nice to be, it's nice to be in the river and I don't know. I'm a grateful guy. I'm a happy guy. I mean, I'm just fortunate, to have so much love in my life and have the opportunity to love others. It's just makes me kind of cry to say it all, but it's true. It's just kind of like, wow, to be able to contribute in a loving way to other people's lives, man. What a sweetness, What a sweetness.
Well, Mitchel, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a phenomenal conversation. I really appreciate you spending time with us.
Yeah, you're a beautiful fellow, Mike. I love you. And Lee, you're beautiful too, sweetheart. I've got to know you on a Sunday meeting, and you have such a wonderful light emanating from your heart. And so it's good to be with a brother and sister walking down the path together. So thanks for having me. All right.
Thank you.
You so much.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Mitchel. What a powerful story. Great spending time with him. If you want to find us online, we're available at blog.dailyreflectionpodcast.com. We write about recovery, share stories. If you want to join us on the Facebook group, there's a lot of interaction there. Facebook.com/groups/dailyreflectionpodcast. Join us there. Would love to get your feedback on the podcast. You can give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or the whatever network you're using to listen to the podcast. I really appreciate you listening. Thanks for your support. Have a great day, everybody.